In 1996, climbers from around the world traveled to Mount Everest, chasing the greatest achievement on Earth. Many would reach the summit. But above the clouds, a deadly storm was already waiting for them. There are places on Earth so dangerous, so unforgiving, that human beings were never truly meant to survive there for long. Mount Everest is one of those places. Standing over 29,000 feet above sea level, Everest is the tallest mountain on Earth. To climbers, it represents glory, victory, the ultimate challenge. For decades, people dreamed of standing on its summit, believing that reaching the top of the world meant conquering something greater than themselves. But Everest has never cared about human ambition. The mountain does not care about experience, or courage, or dreams. And in 1996, Everest would remind the world exactly how dangerous it truly was. Every year, climbers from different countries spent enormous amounts of money preparing for the expedition. Some trained for years, others left behind families, careers, and ordinary lives for one chance to stand above the clouds. Many understood the risks: avalanches, frostbite, exhaustion, lack of oxygen, death. But there was something hypnotic about Everest, something that continued pulling people toward it despite the danger. Perhaps it was pride, perhaps it was obsession, or perhaps human beings have always been drawn toward places capable of destroying them. By May 1996, several climbing teams had gathered at the base of Mount Everest. Among them were experienced guides and determined clients willing to risk everything for the climb of a lifetime. None of them knew they were walking toward one of the deadliest disasters in Everest history. Climbing Everest is not simply about strength. It is about survival, because high above the mountain exists a place climbers fear deeply, a place known as the death zone. Above 8,000 meters, the air contains dangerously low oxygen levels. Every breath becomes difficult. The human body begins weakening slowly. Even standing still can feel exhausting. The heart works harder. The brain receives less oxygen. Judgment becomes impaired. Climbers may hallucinate, lose focus, forget simple decisions. Some become confused without realizing it. Others suddenly lose the strength to continue walking. Imagine standing thousands of feet above Earth, surrounded by endless snow, unable to breathe properly, while your body slowly begins shutting down. That is what climbers face inside the death zone. And yet every year, people still climb higher, because the summit of Everest represents something larger than logic. To many climbers, reaching the top means proving something to themselves, that they are capable of surviving where few humans can. But Everest has one terrifying rule: reaching the summit means nothing if you cannot come back down alive. In May 1996, climbers slowly began ascending the mountain through dangerous ice paths and freezing winds. Step by step, they climbed higher into thinner air. Large chunks of ice surrounded them. Deep crevices opened beneath their feet. Temperatures dropped lower each night. Sleep became difficult. Exhaustion became constant. Yet morale remained high. Many climbers believed conditions were favorable. The summit appeared possible. Teams spent days preparing for what climbers call summit push, the final climb toward the top of Everest. This is the most dangerous part of the journey. Climbers leave camp late at night, moving through darkness with only small headlamps visible against the snow. One wrong step can mean death. Oxygen supplies become critical. Energy disappears quickly. But after weeks of preparation, the summit finally feels close enough to touch. On the night of May 9th, heading into May 10th, climbers began moving toward the top of the world. None of them knew disaster was already approaching. The night climb was brutal. Freezing winds struck the mountain as climbers pushed themselves upward through darkness. Every movement required energy. Every breath felt thinner than the last. But slowly, climbers began reaching the summit. For many, it was the greatest moment of their lives, standing above the clouds, looking down at the world below. Some cried. Others celebrated quietly through oxygen masks. After years of dreaming, they had finally reached the top of Earth. But there was a problem. Many climbers had arrived far too late in the day. On Everest, timing matters more than ambition. Experienced climbers understand a dangerous truth. If you remain too high on the mountain after a certain hour, darkness and weather can trap you before you descend. And that is exactly what began happening on May 10th, 1996. While climbers celebrated at the summit, the weather began changing. At first, the storm seemed manageable. Then conditions worsened rapidly. Winds became violent. Snow filled the air. Visibility disappeared. Climbers struggled to see even a few feet ahead. The path down the mountain became almost invisible. Temperatures collapsed dangerously low. Oxygen supplies continued running out. And suddenly, experienced climbers found themselves trapped high inside the death zone. Panic slowly spread across the mountain. Some climbers became separated from their teams. Others lost the route entirely. Radios crackled through the storm as desperate. Climbers tried communicating with base camp, but Everest was swallowing sound beneath screaming winds. Imagine trying to survive while barely able to breathe. Unable to see, surrounded by freezing darkness thousands of feet above the earth. That nightmare became reality for dozens of climbers that night. Some continued moving blindly through snowstorms. Others collapsed from exhaustion. A few sat down to rest, never realizing they would never stand up again. As the storm intensified, climbers wandered through white darkness, searching desperately for safety. Hypoxia began affecting judgment. Exhaustion destroyed concentration. Frostbite spread through fingers and faces. Every step became agony. Some climbers reportedly removed gloves despite the freezing temperatures because confusion caused them to stop thinking clearly. Others simply stopped moving altogether. One of the most horrifying realities of Everest is this. Sometimes survival forces impossible choices. Climbers passed dying teammates because stopping too long in the death zone could kill everyone involved. Not because they lacked compassion, but because Everest gives human beings very little mercy. Through the darkness, stranded climbers continued fighting for survival. Some crawled through snow barely conscious. Others disappeared entirely into the storm. And as night consumed the mountain, Everest became a frozen graveyard above the clouds. When morning finally arrived, the storm slowly cleared. Survivors emerged exhausted and traumatized. Some could barely speak. Others struggled to process what had happened during the night. Scattered across the mountain were abandoned oxygen tanks, equipment, and bodies. Several climbers had died during the storm. Others were severely injured. Families waiting at home would soon receive devastating news. The world quickly learned about the disaster. Newspapers covered the tragedy everywhere. People were shocked that experienced climbers could still lose their lives so suddenly on Everest. But those who understood the mountain knew the truth. Everest does not forgive mistakes easily, and sometimes survival depends not only on skill, but on weather, timing, luck, and impossible decisions made in moments of fear. Even after the disaster of 1996, people continued climbing Everest, year after year, generation after generation. Why? Perhaps because there is something deeply human about wanting to stand where few others have stood, to challenge fear, to chase meaning, to feel larger than ordinary life. But Everest has always reminded humanity of one terrifying truth. Nature cannot be conquered completely. High above the clouds, where the air becomes too thin to breathe, the mountain still waits, silent, frozen, unforgiving.